How's it going, everyone? Jiivita here with release 217. This is on the live servers and adds some pretty interesting things. First off, you can now edit the Sanctum. Or at least the first stages of editing the Sanctum has been incorporated. Unfortunately, this is only available to PC players for the time being. It's coming to PS4 sometime soon. Probably the main reason why it's not already available for PS4 is that it's accessed through the debugging menu, and Sony prohibits any kind of debugging menus in the PS4 version, pretty much period, from what I can tell. Which makes me kind of wonder if they just renamed the debugging menu to auxiliary official user interface or something like that. Will it make Sony happy? Because, you know, it's whatever. Moving along. In order to access editing the Sanctum, you'll need to come down here while, of course, in the Sanctum and come to Sanctum Edit. It's going to pop up this little menu and has a little load button, which will then bring up, oh, you can't see that. There we go. It'll bring up this window, and you can see here's the default Sanctum, and here's the Sanctum that was used during the Valentine's Day event. So you could load either one of these, and so let's open this up. It'll go through a little bit of loading, and now you have full access to the Give menu to basically give yourself whatever you need. There's some few instructions right here, but you can just hit F1 again to make all this go away. And as you can see, there is a stand-in for where the character is going to load in, as well as the warp augment and totems and whatnot. But now we can come along. Well, you can't break the portals, but you can break just about everything else. Plus, you can place blocks. So let's see here, just how far can we go up? Okay, and as you can see, there is a really ridiculously high build height. I'm guessing, let's see here, it's probably the same 255 that you have in the default or the normal world. Yeah, 255. It says 256 because, well, I'm standing on the 255th block. So you have the complete build height. You should theoretically be immune here. However, what's really cool is that you can fly in this mode, so you can hit F by default. I didn't see anywhere in the controls where you can customize the fly button, so if you already are using F for something else, you might need to reset your default controls. Otherwise, I'm not really sure how that will really happen, but see if we can actually build down here, because there's quite a bit of, yeah, you can place blocks down here. You can't do anything with this, but yeah, you still have quite a bit of room to play around. So you could use this as kind of like a creative mode. There's even a competition for decorating the Sanctum for the Gleam bow event. So however, I believe that ends actually tomorrow, the 6th of March. So hopefully you're not just now finding out about that if that's something that actually interests you. Oh, that's interesting. That torch is floating because it was on the other side of that trade plinth that I broke. So very nice. And once you're done playing around, you can kind of scroll down at the bottom of the Sanctum Epic, and you have a number of options. You can return to game as normal using the normal Sanctum, or you can return to game using the Sanctum that you currently have made. You can also save, load, reset, save as, so you can save multiple versions of the Sanctum for your liking. So I could certainly see like setting up maybe some jumping puzzles or something like that, or all sorts of interesting things. But let's return to game using the current Sanctum. Okay, there we go. So you do need to at least save what you've made. And I actually went and did a save as and named it as test. So just if you don't click save or anything, apparently it doesn't, well, save. So, but let's head out here and take a look at the 4 new guild buffs in this release. So first off, we have the Brew Extension Helix. I have to admit, all of these are a bit more powerful than I originally thought, but the Brew Extension guild buff will increase the brew duration by up to 6, 14, all the way up to 18 seconds for every creature that is defeated. So if you're in like a meteor type event and you're, defeating creatures left and right, you could potentially extend your buff duration almost indefinitely. We had to kind of test it out and see if the duration gained during a meteor would be enough to overcome the downtime in between meteors. Certainly, I guess on your way across the world, you could kind of waylace anything in your path, and you might even be able to extend your brew duration almost indefinitely, but that would need a little bit of testing out. And here we have the Greater Healing Guild buff. This will heal you anytime you gather surface resources such as plants and boulders, but the Minor does 300 health per, Improved does 600, and then the Greater does 900 health for each resource gathered. So that is a lot more potent than I ever dreamed it would be. So this should be pretty nice for gatherers, particularly because my gatherers usually only have the default 600 or however much HP you get from having the bonus attributes. Let's see how much this character has. Here we go, profile, core attributes. So yeah, this character only has 730 HP. That's with no vitality, just the vitality that I get from attribute bonus. So with that maximum range, I would fully heal myself every time I gathered something. So that's pretty interesting. This one sounds pretty impressive. This is the Building Safety Guild buff, and what it does is it decreases falling damage by 40% and increases block placement range by 40%. If you are in a guild-aligned beacon. That's kind of the catch. It's not for everywhere, it's only for guild-aligned beacons, but certainly your building, you could align your beacon to the guild temporarily if you don't want it to be aligned permanently, and then you would have increased block placement and decreased falling damage. The really impressive thing is it starts out at 40%, going up to 75 and 60%, all the way up to 180%. So decreases falling damage by 100%. So yeah, falling damage would be essentially removed as long as you're inside of the guild aligned beacon. That is really impressive. Not to mention that 80% extra block placement. So if you have maximum control, that already gives you a lot of range. So let's see what so with maximum control, you get an interaction range of 10.8, so 80% on top of that. That's essentially going to be 18 to 19 meters range for placing and interacting with things. That would be pretty insane. So basically, you could just stand on the ground and be able to harvest or build pretty much all the way up there. I would roughly guesstimate. So very impressive. Moving along, we have the Home Healing Helix. This is very similar to the other one, except it will heal you every 5 seconds while you're inside of a guild-aligned beacon. So starts off at 200 per 5, going up to 750 per 5 seconds, all the way up to 1200 health per 5 seconds. So I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's a pretty safe bet that you could be starving and this would keep you from dying, basically. Pretty sure that would overpower the hunger mechanic, but that's pretty impressive as long as you're, of course, inside of a guild-aligned beacon. That is kind of the catch. So very interesting buff. Okay, and jumping over to my home on the live servers, we have the next major feature, which are advanced locks. So this has been a regularly requested feature over basically the entire course I've been playing Boundless, and this essentially allows you to micromanage the permissions to your beacon. So if you don't want to give, say, somebody complete permissions across all of your stuff in your beacon, you can use advanced locks to pick and choose the things they have access to, and even pick and choose the things they don't have access to. So you could give them sweeping permissions across your entire beacon, but still keep a few key locations locked and off limits. So it's pretty impressive system. But let's take a look at this. I already have one placed right here. As you can see, if you look at the lock, everything that is locked by the lock is highlighted in kind of the red outline box type things. So very easy to see what you're locking. And how this works is that you interact with it, and as you can see, there's a list of all of the friends. If the beacon is aligned to a guild, you can also look at guild members or even just entire guild factions at a time. But let's scroll all the way down here and find my crafter, Zilpa. And all you have to do is click on their name, and there's a little checkbox right there that gives them full access to whatever it is that is locked. So pretty straightforward. A good thing to note about these locks, however, is that they lock not only what they're sitting on, but whatever's on the back side. So it's really hard to see, but this shop stand is also affected by this lock. So if I put the lock up on top, it'll be a little bit easier to see what I'm talking about. But we can get up here, look at this lock, you can see that it's also affecting this shop stand. So let's go ahead, give Zilpa permissions again. And then now, when I switch over to Zilpa, he'll be able to access those shelves, but he doesn't have permissions to anywhere else on the beacon, or on the beacon at all. As you can see, can't access any of this stuff, no permissions. However, now I can come over here and access everything on this storage shelf. So, very nice. But I do have to be mindful of what's on the other side, because I can access this shop stand right here as well. Whereas all these other shop stands, I can only interact with them at the customer level. So as far as how much an advanced lock will actually lock, it essentially will go in 3 blocks in every direction from where it's placed. So placed on the top here, it reaches down 3 blocks. However, I could place it in the middle and it would reach up an additional 3 blocks, down 3 blocks, inside to side. So you can lock quite a bit of storage with just one advanced lock, not to mention it gets the front and back side as well. So if there's storage shelves on the back, it'll lock those as well. And even some of the shop stands. Usually, as you can see here, it doesn't really get these shop stands off to the side, but since the lock is directly adjacent to this top shop stand, it locks that as well. Okay, so slightly different scenario right here. I'm at my beacon control. I gave Zilpa sweeping permissions across my beacon. He should be able to access everything. However, let's say there's a particular machine that has sensitive things like, how about my forge? You can place a lock right there, and the really cool thing is, as you can see, it's not only locking the bottom machine, but the top machine as well, and all of this storage. So with one lock, I can secure my entire forging setup. So pretty nice little tidbit right there. But now, when I log over to Zilpa, he will not be able to access that since I didn't give any permissions to that lock whatsoever. So taking a look now, I can now access this furnace, all of these storage shelves. However, when I come around here to try and interact with any of this storage or these forges, they are completely off limits to me. So very nice. I can interact with the lock and see who has permissions to this machine. And as you can see, it is only Jiivita. So however, it's good to note if you don't have any permissions to anywhere on the beacon, you won't be able to see who has access to the locks. So you need at least some measure of permission somewhere in the beacon to be able to view the permissions of the individual locks. Okay, so a few additional notes on locks. The old locks are still around. They've been renamed to door locks, and as the name suggests, they only lock doors. So this will prevent any player that does not have permissions from interacting with the door, so they can neither close nor open the door. Naturally, if somebody with permissions opens the door, then anybody can pass through. And so yeah, just something good to keep in mind. The advanced locks, a few good things to note about them is that if you place more than one lock on, say, a set of shelves, then players will need permissions to both locks to be able to access the shelves. So off the top of my head, I'm not really sure what kinds of cool things you could do with such a system, but I'm sure somebody will come up with an interesting use for this type of mechanic. And as far as what advanced locks can lock, well, they can lock pretty much anything you can actually interact with. The only two exceptions that I know of are the ones listed in the patch notes, and that would be beacons and mailboxes. So you can't use an advanced lock to allow somebody to use your beacon, and you can't use an advanced lock to, I guess, deny access to a mailbox. I mean, I don't know why you would want to deny access to a mailbox. I guess if you just wanted to receive messages from only a handful of players or something, but kind of defeats the whole purpose of what a mailbox is actually for. Just to reiterate what you can lock, because some of the things you might not actually expect. So you can lock machines, furnaces, shop stands, request baskets, signs, portals, and yeah, I guess that is actually about it. But so you just have to keep in mind that when you give players access to these things, they have the same level of access that you would have. So if you give them access to a machine or a portal, they can not only use it for its intended purpose, but they can also take things out of it as well. So if you wanted somebody to help you fuel a portal, they could fuel the portal, or they could just as easily take all the fuel out of the portal. So there's no way to designate, oh, you can only insert items or take out items that maybe you yourself crafted, or etc, etc. So while this gives you a lot more control over who can access what in your beacon, you still have to use a little bit of common sense and make sure that you trust the player if you're giving them access to something that they could potentially kind of run off with some stuff. The only person that can remove these advanced locks or any of the blocks attached to the advanced locks is the actual beacon owner or the guild executives if it's in a guild controlled beacon. So all in all, pretty amazing feature, I have to say. Okay, so moving along, the next major feature in this update is the universal channels. Now we have 3 channels that spans the galaxy, from my understanding at least. We have questions and help, shop and trading, community, and events, or kind of like a looking for group sort of thing. So now you can easily chat and get answers, maybe find some groups, or advertise your shop across the known universe. So very nice. Each channel does have some limitations, so the trading channel has a limit of 3 posts per hour, whereas the questions and help has a limit of 3 posts per 15 seconds. So you can't spam these excessively. That should go a long way from preventing these channels from basically being full of gibberish. And following up on the free weekend, there has been some additional improvements to the new player experience. One of the really cool ones is now the furnaces actually has a tab for recipes. So now you basically no longer have to guess of like, oh yeah, how is glass made? Oh, it actually requires 2 sand and 2 silty soil. I thought it was just 1 sand or 1 silty soil, etc. basically. How much heat it requires. So this should help new players greatly when figuring out, like, well, how do I make glass? How do I cook this food? Etc, etc. Oh, I didn't even realize there was hard leather. That's interesting. Bucket of water and leather. So yeah, this must be used for the really high level tools and equipment, because so far it doesn't even have a use. So that is pretty interesting. Learn something new every day. Also, there's been quite a few tweaks to how long things take to craft for early players, so things like stone tools, smelting ores, all of that has been reduced, not drastically, but generally about 10 seconds across the board. So if it was like 40 seconds, it'll take 30 seconds or something like that, just so it kind of streamlines the new player experience a bit more. So to give some actual examples, we have copper bores. It was 40 seconds, now it's 30 seconds. Glass was 60 seconds and got chopped in half down to 30 seconds. So looks like, yeah, everything should be a little bit more snappier for new players. Some interesting additional little tidbits that made it into this patch is now you have a news tab over here on the main menu, so you can review all of the the news flashes, even review when they went live. So for this one, we have the Gleam Racing, Advanced Locks, Global Chat, and new guild buffs. So there's a button for not only the full release notes, which will open up, I guess, I'm assuming the patch notes, or just the little event notification right here. Also, Gleam Club members now no longer take up basically slots in a guild, at least up to a maximum of 500. So originally each guild can only have 100 members. Now Gleam Club members no longer count to that limit, at least up until 500 per guild/faction. And now the capital is a warp destination by default. So anytime you're on a planet, you always have the location of the capital as an option to warp to. And I believe even the tutorial that asks you to go to the capital will now just ask you to basically teleport there. So that sounds really nice, not only for completing that objective, but just trying to get back to civilization or finding the mecca of civilization on a particular planet. So pretty cool. Now on the player profile, there is basically a durability modifier somewhere. So I'm gonna guess maybe motion and action. Yeah, durability drain modifier. So I have 30% from the skill, and if I eat a persisting food, which apparently fell off my action bar at some point, it should update. So very nice. So with the skill and the food, it goes all the way up to 70%. So that is very nice. And then finally, we have a little bit of information on the Gleam Racing. So what it sounds like is there's going to be Gleam kind of meteorites, but instead of a meteorite landing and then you have to fight a whole bunch of creatures, the actual objective is to basically harvest the meteorite. So it'll be composed of colorful blocks, some which are not available anywhere else in the world. And it does say that you'll have to be fast. If less than half of the meteor blocks are destroyed within the time limit, then the remaining blocks will turn a plain gray and no reward will be given. So you are a little bit on a time limit, and you also have to use a special Gleam totem to actually destroy these blocks. So it sounds like maybe a level 1, if you get there quickly enough, you could do it by yourself. However, if it's like a level 6 meteor, then you probably are going to need some friends. Not to mention it would take a bunch of friends just to get a level 6 Gleam meteor, assuming that the Gleam meteors even have levels. They might not, that is a possibility. And they hint that there will be a Gleamicorn horn, like a unicorn horn, I suppose, as far as a face mask in the exchange. So pretty cool. Okay, well I think that covers the major changes in this patch. You can find the link to the patch notes in the description below. And yeah, there's been quite a few interesting kind of bug fixes as well. So particularly one I'm excited for is they at least hunted down one of the bugs that was causing items to fall off your action bar. So hopefully that will be a little bit better now. But anyway, this was Jiivita. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more like this, and if there's anything you didn't like, please let me know down below. Also, if you like my channel, want to get cool perks, check out my Patreon page. Until next time, peace.